here's the deal, everybody. I like math. I've been told I'm a weird person because of it, but I don't really care. You see, math can be quite useful, especially understanding certain things about the tabletop game industry, like the recent change Asmadi USA made to their replacement policy. So let's use math to show you how this is going to save them money from a business perspective, and if they do it right, it might just give everybody a bit of a better customer experience. So I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield and the creator of Legends of Kaladeshi, a space combat miniatures game. And considering my experience with the tabletop game industry, I tend to look at changes like this, like what Asmadi announced, and view them from a business perspective. And oftentimes can give a little bit better, clearer justification for why companies do certain things than purely a fan perspective. Just as a simple case in point, we go back to, I think it was 2011 with the whole Citadel Fighting Cast thing. If you really want to know why they did that, look at the price of pewter. I'll tell you that right now. You can research that yourself. So, when it comes to this particular update here, I learned about it from probably a really good source for Fantasy Flight News, which is Krabik. Is that how you pronounce his name? He's a YouTuber. I'll put a link to his channel. He does a lot of excellent videos on a lot of the Star Wars games and some of the other Fantasy Flight stuff like that. It's really helpful to get the latest news from him. And I watched his video on this topic, and all in all, I agree with pretty much everything he said. He had the right conclusions, but I think it would help to understand a little bit more from the math side as to why Asmadi did this, because you can actually figure out a lot by looking at the details of how things cost and compared to how things will probably cost under the new system. And for that, let's take a quick look at what the new policy actually is. So I'm here looking at the website of Asmadi USA with the new updates to the part replacement program. And the big thing to look under here is the parts replacement FAQ. This is basically explaining how what you're going to do now is when you have an issue with a Fantasy Flight game, like an X-Wing miniature, Star Wars Legion miniature, you're going to go through your local store. In particular, the big thing you see here, return to the store where you originally purchased the game with a proof of purchase, and they will be able to request a replacement copy of the game from Asmadi USA or their distributor. That is the big thing here, and we'll show you why doing that is probably going to save Asmadi money in the long run. And just as one quick disclaimer before I get into the details, this information I'm working off here is pretty much all from publicly available sources. I have no business relationship with Fantasy Flight Games or Asmadi, and in fact, I create and sell a competitor to many of their products. So just keep that in mind. This is not like I have some insider knowledge about how this company works or have some sort of contractual information that reveals more about this policy than a normal random customer of the Star Wars games or the other Fantasy Flight properties. So let's start with this very simple flowchart. I mean, dirt simple, as you can see here, because previously, resolving issues with your product was often between the customer and Asmadi directly. And the first thing this new policy lets them do is reduce issues of fraud, as Krabik suggested, and that's probably correct as what it will do. Because the reality is, in the case of Asmadi over here, when they get a request from a customer for a replacement part, they really don't know the legitimacy of that particular request unless the request is really stupid, like they're asking for like 4 lightsabers for a Jedi miniature from Star Wars Legion or something like that when there really should be 1 in the box. It's like, hey, my Vader operative is missing 4 lightsabers. Can you send me 4 new ones? Or if that customer in particular has a history of ordering lots of replacement parts and it kind of looks like they're committing fraud. We change our relationship up here and we add the store in the middle. This is going to limit fraud not only because it's now a face-to-face transaction here per se, though it could be online. This could be done via an online store. Asmadi probably has an idea as to what kind of inventory the store has already purchased. Assuming that, especially if the store goes to Asmadi directly, which maybe they can or cannot do, or even if the store goes to a distributor, Asmadi may be able to request information from the distributor about what products that store has purchased. And they'd be able to spot fraud a little bit easier. For example, if a store is making, like, once again, let's go back to the Vader Operative miniature that came out a while ago. If they say, well, we have 5 defective Vader Operative miniatures, but they only ordered 3, you got a little bit easier for Asmadi to spot fraud in situations like that. But probably most important of all in regards to fraud, though, is the store now has a financial interest to basically not be shady. Because granted, I'm sure we've all known game store owners over the years who are kind of shady and do weird stuff. But the fact is, the store makes money off products, whether it be Star Wars, Legion, X-Wing, or all the Fantasy Flight Cthulhu stuff, which, by the way, the living card game is a heck of a lot of fun. What is it? What's the Call of Cthulhu living card game? My brain failed. Arkham Horror, the card game. Troll to Random aside, that game's a lot of fun. But this store obviously makes money from their products. So I don't know if Asmati would penalize them harshly to where, hey, you know, if you're requesting too much things that look like fraud, in theory, they could cut the store off from selling their products, which means a potentially serious, if not crippling, loss of revenue. So now by adding the store to the equation, you've got someone who actually has financial interest in ensuring that these replacement requests are not fraudulent. So let's talk a little bit about why this is going to actually save Asmati money. So previously, here's your customer, and they're going to make a request to a customer support representative. We're just going to call it CSR for easy purposes. There's probably going to be somebody then who gathers / packs the parts up. So let's just say acquires parts. And then you've got shipping and handling over here. It's basically a multiple step process to handling a replacement request. And to roughly look at the cost along each of the steps, what you're going to have here for the customer service representative section is that you're going to have a cost per request. So regardless of how big the request is, there's going to be, and that should be a Q, not a G, there's going to be a certain just flat out cost in terms of human hours for a given request, because it's probably a ticketing system, there maybe it's an email system, there's bureaucracy there, right? And then there's an additional cost per part. So the total cost of the customer service representative is going to basically be A plus parts times the cost, approximate time. And when I say dollars per part here, I'm not referring to the physical cost of the part. I'm referring to the time and man hours it takes for the customer service representative to enter in the form for that particular piece, whatever the procedure may be. But the key thing to take away here is that a request of multiple parts, so let's say your basic request plus two parts at B dollars in human time per part, that is going to be less than 2 separate requests of 1 part each. And that is where things get really important, right? Because by bundling parts together into a single request, Asmati can reduce their cost simply because they can reduce the number of times this A dollars per request thing has to go through. So let's talk about the inquires part step. Now this is where somebody somewhere has to go into a warehouse, find the requested part, and basically put it and give it to whoever handles all the shipping and packing and whatever it may be. Once more, a human cost is times C dollars per part, and this is, once again, human cost. This is a human expense here. And then there's the actual physical cost of the part. So let's say D dollars physical part cost. But where the big hidden costs come in is for plastic injection molded parts. You don't really make individual pieces easily by themselves. I mean, you generally make the whole sprue or nothing at all. Now, there is some technology that lets you kind of block off parts of the sprue, but once again, you generally aren't making, say, an individual arm or leg or whatever it may be, and you can't really do that on demand anyway, because all that stuff is made in China for Fantasy Flight, and it's shipped over on a boat in a 2, 3 week, 4 week process, whatever it may be, to get from China to here. So in order to actually handle support requests, any pieces that have to be basically taken out of a complete miniature or a complete other product. So the D dollars physical part cost could be up to the cost of the actual product. Now, if Asmati is lucky and they fail in multiple ways where they can kind of break the piece up into 4 ways, then things don't cost quite as much because you send out arm to one guy, head to somebody else. But that assumes that actually happens over time, and that probably doesn't happen a lot over time. So they're gonna likely end up having a whole bunch of half-assembled products sitting around in their warehouse that they really can't do a whole lot with. Plus, this makes life difficult because this whole acquires part thing is really outside of the normal workflow of their inventory system. The final part in the cost of handling one of these replacement things for Asmati is going to be shipping and handling. And that really isn't very cheap. Now, there are commercial rates for the US Postal Service, and probably other countries have that too. But even then, it's still going to cost a few dollars to ship out a small miniature to somebody if you're going from a US warehouse to somewhere in the continental United States, or even Hawaii and Alaska. They don't really cost a whole lot more. Now, it's kind of a arbitrary number what you'd apply here, but for something small, like once again, I'm using a lot of X-Wing miniatures, Legion miniatures as an example, you're probably looking at like $3 to $4 for shipping and handling, and that factors in the human time to pack the box, packing supplies, the box, and the actual shipping cost, whatever they may use, whether it's the US Postal Service, FedEx, or whoever. It's still going to be a few dollars. Even if it's as low as $2, that's still going to be a problem for them. So the total cost is going to end up being equal to $8, which is the time for this customer service representative, plus parts, the number of parts, times B dollars per part to handle the request, plus the number of parts, once again, times C dollars, the human cost to acquire a part, plus D dollars for the actual cost of the part, plus some approximate shipping and handling cost, we'll say $3. Now, human laborists, who knows how fast they can actually process these things. It's probably not a lot, but let's just say $10 an hour. Let's just toss a number out there and see what happens to it. Let's assume the customer service representative can handle 15 requests an hour. So 10 divided by 15, I don't know, let's just say about 75 cents. It's not exactly that, but I don't think I bring my calculator up. So let's say 75 cents, and then each part maybe adds 25 cents of the cost. So let's say we've got two costs at even like 25 cents. Now, maybe they are able to send out, some pieces from the miniatures to this person, then send some from to another person. So we've got two parts, and then because they've got the miniature split up across 3 different requests, you could toss out a number like, let's say it was $1 per part approximately, and then plus $3 shipping and handling. So what do we got here? $1.25 plus $2 plus $3. So you're looking at around $6 to $7 to handle this particular request, and that's under optimal conditions. Let's jump back over to the original FAQ that Asmati put out and see how their new policy is going to actually save them quite a bit of money. The key phrase is going to be, and they will be able to request a replacement copy of the game from Asmati USA or their distributor. How much does some of this stuff cost to produce? Well, let's take a look at an X-Wing miniature. Now, I was at the game store a little while ago, and approximately most of the X-Wing miniatures are running for about $20. It roughly breaks down to where the store gets 40%, the distributor gets 20%, and the actual publisher of the game gets 40%. Now, it's not always exactly that. Some publishers can get better deals than others, but let's stick with 40% because that's a fairly standard number. So that means Asmati gets $8 approximately for a purchase of an X-Wing miniature. If you want to factor in their costs, ideally they want to be basically having this miniature sell, quote, to distributor for approximately twice, if not better than that, than what it costs to manufacture. So the miniature probably shouldn't cost more than $4 to manufacture, if not less than that, if they really want to make a nice profit. But either way, $4, that's less than $6 to $7, and this was under ideal conditions, just punching in random numbers. Who knows exactly what their cost could be. The key factor is, handling a support request from a customer could very easily end up costing Asmati more than the piece cost to manufacture. So by basically just sending another copy to the store and taking back the defective one, it's quite possible that Asmati is going to save money for each replacement request. And not only that, like I said, they'll reduce fraud, they'll reduce kind of shady things where, people buy a collection on eBay, try to request replacement parts that way. And all in all, in the end, Ismati should very likely come out on top. And the smart thing to do, I'm not sure this is what they're going to do, but even with a local game store, if, say, you bring a miniature back to the store because it's missing parts, ideally the store should pretty much just take one from their inventory, give it to you, turn things around that day, and then that store will handle the request to Ismati to get a free replacement in the next shipment. But let's go back up to this whole chain right here and take one more look at that to see how simply sending a replacement part kind of condenses all these costs down. On the customer service representative side, Ismati already has a sales team that's going to be working directly with stores. They'll likely move this responsibility to that sales team, which means they could probably just eliminate some of these people altogether and kind of just cut them out of the company and lay them off, which, we could talk about the morality of that later, but that's not what this discussion is about. This is purely about the money side of things. And by getting rid of a few employees and merging some things together, you can also save additional money because you no longer have to pay payroll taxes, health insurance, and some of those additional benefits that normally come with an employee, with certain types of employees anyway. In addition, by having the stores make a request, there probably could be some sort of formal system set up computer-wise that handles all these requests and condenses them down into a single order. So instead of having a whole lot of these, A plus B orders, they can have something where it's $A plus 100 parts at B. For the acquires part step, a lot of this stuff, like I said, is just going to be got rid of because there's not going to be anybody who has to specifically go find a certain part, package it up, and ship it out. This whole replacement process is going to be merged back in the normal inventory flow of Ismati, and therefore any additional cost it incurs will be very minimal because it's just basically increasing your inventory workflow, and it's not a totally separate special workflow that is different and weird and more complex. Because that kind of thing where you have a separate workflow that's more complex, that's more cost, just scaling up the main workflow a tiny bit, a whole lot less of a cost. And then a shipping and handling thing, instead of having to send out a single package to a given person, which is incredibly inefficient, because larger packages are more cost efficient than a lot of smaller packages. So if you were to take a 10-pound package and break it up into 10 1-pound packages, or even worse, break it up into 20 half-pound, or keep going down that way into 40 quarter-pound packages, those collections of smaller packages are going to cost a whole heck of a lot more than the one larger package. So now you're reducing the shipping and handling cost. Plus, because all you're probably doing is sending 1 or 2 replacement items to a store already, this shipping and handling cost for the replacement items is now merged into the shipping and handling cost of the normal weekly shipment for that store. And therefore, it does, like I said, since it's now part of the inventory workflow, it doesn't really add a whole lot of additional cost to Ismati because all they're doing is scaling up their inventory workflow a tiny little bit. And in some cases, depending on what the relationship the store has with Ismati or the distributor, the store might be paying for those shipping costs and not Ismati. So it's entirely possible now that Ismati is basically just paying for the shipping to send it off to the distributor, which means now they got even bigger packages going out and saving money on scale that way. And finally, the other thing Ismati might be able to do to save money, I don't know if they're going to do this, but common items that are basically found across the entire line, they're not unique to one product, such as the flight stands for your X-Wing miniatures, your Legion bases, those kind of things. Ismati could basically just send a box of these to the store, and if someone comes back in and say, hey, my Rebel Troopers are missing their 5 bases, or whatever comes in the box, there's 7 miniatures in the Rebel Troopers box, whatever, the store can look in, find 7 Rebel Trooper bases, hand them over to the customer, and everyone's happy that day. And then periodically, if the store runs out of these little replacement part kits, just request a new one from Ismati, gets sent along the inventory, everyone's happy, everyone saves money, and the customer has a better experience. So, thank you guys all for watching. Hopefully this kind of explains with some nice solid numbers as to why Ismati would change a policy like this, and kind of gives you a little bit of insight in how businesses have to think in order to make money and still maintain profitability. But the reality is, the most important thing is reduced costs. You hear that all the time in businesses, reduce costs. So once again, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. If you like these kind of random math things, because maybe you're weird like me, or you want some insight into how businesses work and stuff like that, feel free to post a comment in this video, and maybe we'll make some more like this. And so thank you guys all for watching, and have a great week. Alright, just for kicks, what is $10 divided by, not mod, divided by 15? Ah, darn it, 66 cents.